everyone, this is Ishak from Cosplay. I hope you're all hanging in out there in this lockdown doing something exciting. Staying in home right now is important, but that doesn't mean you have to be bored staying at home. So today I'm gonna be showing you how I made this exciting dual slayer helmet out of EVA foam. I'm also gonna be focusing on how I made this cool visor and how I made these tiny little details of this helmet and so on. I start by sorting out the patterns that I printed out, and I'm gonna use an anti-cutter and a pair of scissors to cut them out. I use the anti-cutter because it's easier to cut the smaller and smaller details more precisely, but it's hard on your workbench, so I recommend using a pair of scissors. After cutting the scissors, after I have all the pieces cut out, I'm gonna transfer them to EVA foam. But before that, I'm gonna have to find out a base from where I will start. So as the starting point, I choose the top of the head because that's more easier to find, and it's a mirror piece. So that means that I have to cut two of these, which will mirror each other. So a lot of people draw these out separately, but what I intend to do is I actually draw one side out, and then I join the middle part and then draw another side out. This gives me a single whole piece that's easier to cut out. After I'm done tracing, I start cutting the piece with the anti-cutter I have, and always remember I use a 30-degree anti-cutter blade because it's more closer to the precision blades or exacto knives professional cosplayers use, but I use it because it's cheaper and more easier to find in your local stores. So I cut the piece in 90-degree angles using a anti-cutter, and being careful as not to cut the important parts of the piece and where I need to cut them off. As this piece doesn't need to have any kind of special angles, or it doesn't have any kind of special that kind of bend, so I cut all the pieces in 90-degree angles. That means the blade will be vertical to the axis. So after I have that cut out, I have another piece of the forehead. This goes on the forehead part of the helmet, and this is also a double-sided part. That means I will mirror the piece once I have done drawing the tracing out the one part. After I have this piece traced out, I start cutting it, and as it has actually different parts with different angles. So I cut some parts of it 90-degree angles, and for other parts I tilt my blade to the inner side of the foam where I need to cut, and so that forms a 45-degree angle cut on the foam, and it will become a valley once I actually attach it to the other part of the helmet, which this part connects to, like the puzzle. And that is how I cut the rest of the piece, just like that, and this will go on for quite some time. Be careful not to use the same side of the mirror pieces on the foam, because that way you will have you might end up with a left-sided piece, that is like you have two left side pieces and you don't have any right side pieces. So that will waste your time. First of all, it will waste your time, and second of all, it will waste your foam, which is in this time of pandemic is hard to come across.
Be sure to check the joints of the pieces once you cut them off, and make sure that they're actually accurate size and they line up easily, so that it will be easier for you when you actually want to join them with glue. So remembering how they attach to one another is important. After I have all the pieces cut out, I start applying contact cement on the sides of the helmet where they will attach to one another. I apply a even thin layer and let them out to dry for a minute or two, because contact cements work that way. You have to apply the contact cements and wait for a minute or two before it's dried out. When it's dry enough and you can just hold it and your hand won't get wet of any kind, you can just join them together as and they will connect with each other very seamlessly, if you can do it seamlessly. But it's really easy to do it when I'm doing it with contact cement, and it's easier to do it with contact cement than it's with super glue. But that doesn't mean I don't use super glue. I do use super glue, but it's just rare occasions. Okay, so I use more contact cement than I use super glue. Super glue is to just connect the pieces that I actually forgot to put contact cement on, or they're just not connecting well enough. The foam actually is very elastic, so it will want to go back to its original size. But when you just super glue it, it just stays there. It stays in place. I'm just like, what can I say? I'm just forcing it to stay like that. Yeah, that's what I say. After I have the helmet assembled, I actually move on to other parts of the helmet that I need to use. As you can see, I've also acquired a cutting mat because 5 years of cutting on my workbench, it has been heavily damaged. So the piece I'm cutting here is a raised panel on the backside of the helmet, and it's part of the details. I actually traced it out, and I'm cutting it out with the well-paper ruler because I don't have it's gonna be showing outside, and so the angle cuts, the even though it has a 90-degree angle cut, but using a ruler or some kind gives me an added advantage of making the cut more straight. So I just cut it off, and in the helmet, I'm sorry, the camera position wasn't high enough. I'll fix that in my later videos. But I am actually cutting out some recessed panels of the uh, air vents for the ears actually. So it has actually a good airflow, so it's not suffocating inside the helmet. So I just cut them off in a plain sight. Okay, and then I'm sanding down the place that I'm gonna attach the raised panel of the back of the helmet, and I just sand it down so that the contact cement sticks better on this side. Okay, so the side I use of the EVA foam is very smooth and shiny. So when I paint it, it actually gives off a nice shine. But contact cement doesn't actually attach to that side very well. So I have to rough it out a bit with sandpaper. So I actually cut out spreader, actually a glue spreader from a scrap piece of foam, and I actually sprayed the glue with it. So it's actually contact cement, not glue. Sorry about that, but it's just how I spread things. I don't have any contact cement brush or anything. I just use a spare piece of foam that I have laying around. So what I'm cutting now here is these are the fin pieces that goes on the top of the helmet and on the back of the helmet. I am using 5mm water foam for here because they are really hard and rigid, and this will give my helmet a harder outer shell so that I can headbutt demon ass. Not actually ass, but I can actually headbutt people with it and they will get hurt. But that is not actually the goal, but it is a helmet, so whatever. I like it like this. After I have all the fins cut out, I attach them with super glue. But before attaching those parts, I actually sand down the places that I'm gonna attach these. So again, as the super glue can stick better with the foam, because the shiny surface of the foam is not very sticky, even for super glue. So I just sand it down a little bit and I attach the foam with the super glue. Yeah, as you can see, I have drawn out some guidelines for the pieces to stick so that they are evenly distant from one another, so that it looks more professionally made, like an industrial grade helmet, than rather than a handmade one. I just sand down the places I'm gonna super glue them, and when I super glue them, it just hides the sanded places, and the helmet actually looks shiny. After I finish making the outer layer of the helmet, I start making the visor. For the visor, I'm using transparent X-ray sheets, as I actually pick them up from my local foam store, and they're very cheap. The silver pen I use for tracing out patterns doesn't work on this piece of shit, so I'm not shit, it's sheet, SHEET. So I use a ballpoint pen to trace out my marks. Okay, so I have the design of the visor drawn on the EVA foam pattern that I made, and so it's easier for me to trace it out on the visor sheet than for me to trace it out from the paper. As you can see, I am just scraping off with the anti-cutter blade, not just like a pen, and I actually score out the sides of the visor a little bit, like half a centimeter space is given to actually stick it to the foam as okay. And I have two sheets of sheets cut out over here. One sheet does have the design of the helmet and the other one doesn't. That is to maintain the smooth texture of the helmet. That is then gonna be the outer layer of the helmet. Okay, but as I join these two together, the design pops up from the inside. But as there are two sheets of extra sheets, they some kind of refraction happens and it turns into some kind of mirror like surface. So you can see there is a little mirror effect over here. You can see my head in the reflection of the visor piece. And always remember to wipe off your fingerprints, as I am doing here. I use a rubbing alcohol to rub off my fingerprints off this visor, and now it's time to stick it inside the helmet. Be careful not to line up because you can mess up the lines of the helmet. Be careful to put the middle line first. Okay, so the midpoint of the helmet and the visor should line up, okay, from top to bottom, so that the helmet actually stays straight. Or otherwise, if I or you can screw this up, the helmet will look crooked. I use super glue to attach the whole thing to the helmet. You can also use contact cement, but I use super glue because these visors need to be attached very quickly, but contact cement actually works very slowly. So I use super glue here to attach it permanently, because it ain't gonna go anywhere anyway. So it's not gonna move. It's not gonna be any kind of rustling or anything. So the visor will stay safe even if I put super glue here. But for a stronger connection, I suggest using contact cement, which is not needed here but is needed on the joints of the foams for the structure and integrity of the helmet. And just like that, when I'm finished, the helmet should look like this. And that's how I finished making the Doomslayer helmet with all the details and etc. etc.
Now I know it's not colored. I will color it with the rest of the armor when I'm done. But if you like this video, leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and see you next Friday.